Welcome to my channel, Rise Up with Steve. Please hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends.
Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but it's the truth. The tighter you hold on to someone who is pulling away, the faster you push them out of your life. That's not love. That's fear talking. A man doesn't come back because you begged him. He doesn't return because you cried, chased, or explained your worth to him. A man comes back when he feels the absence of your presence, not the pressure of your emotions. See, when you let go peacefully, something powerful happens. You stop arguing. You stop probing. You stop asking for clarity from someone who already made their decision through their actions. And in that silence, he finally hears the truth. Peaceful letting go is not weakness. It is strength wrapped in self-respect. When you let go without drama, you send a message louder than words. I know my value. I don't need to convince you. And that's when it hits him. That's when he realizes the comfort he took for granted is gone. That's when he notices the calm he lost, the support he underestimated, the woman who stopped chasing and started choosing herself. Men respond to energy, not explanations. When your energy shifts from please stay to I'll be fine either way, the dynamic changes. Now he's curious. Now he's thinking. Now he's wondering why you're no longer available the way you used to be. You ever notice something in relationships? The more you chase someone, the faster they seem to slip away from you. You see, when you're constantly texting, calling, begging for attention, or explaining yourself, it's like you're sending a message that says, I need you more than you need me. And no one, no grown man, no self-respecting person responds well to that energy. Chasing creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. And resistance creates distance. It's almost like gravity flips. The harder you pull, the further they go. But here's the thing that most people don't get. You don't have to push to be loved. You don't have to fight for attention to be noticed. And you certainly don't have to chase to be respected. Peace is the game changer. When you step back, when you stop running after someone, when you stop trying to force a response, something magical happens. Suddenly, they see you differently. They notice the calm in your energy. They notice that you aren't desperate. They notice that your world doesn't revolve around them anymore. And this is what pulls clarity. You see, people are attracted to confidence and presence more than anything else. If you're always chasing, you're showing fear. Fear is loud, fear is heavy, and fear is exhausting to be around. But peace is quiet. Peace is effortless. Peace doesn't beg, it doesn't demand. Peace just exists and says, I know my worth, and I'm fine with or without you. And when a man sees that, when he feels that shift in energy, it forces him to look at his own heart. It forces him to face the reality of what he's doing or not doing. And it forces him to ask himself, do I want this or am I going to let it go? Because see, nobody wants someone who's constantly chasing, someone who's never at ease, someone who can't step back and trust that what's meant to be will be. But when you create that space, that quiet confidence, suddenly he starts thinking clearly. Suddenly, he begins to see you for the value you bring. Suddenly, the things he took for granted, the moments he overlooked, the love he ignored, it all becomes visible to him. And here's the key. This isn't manipulation. This isn't a trick to make him run back. This is simple human nature. People respond to energy, not to words. They respond to presence, not desperation. They respond to peace, not chaos. And when you embody that peace, it pulls clarity, it pulls truth. He starts to understand what he had, and he starts to realize that it wasn't your absence that hurt. It was the way you allowed yourself to step away without a fight, without a tear, without a drama. It's the silence that speaks the loudest. And that, my friends, is power. Not power over him, but power within you. The power to love yourself enough to know that you don't have to chase anyone to get what you deserve. The power to step back and let the universe, or God, or fate, or whatever you believe in, handle the rest. And when you do that, when you truly let go peacefully, what happens is almost inevitable. Either he comes back recognizing the value he let go, or he doesn't. And you've won anyway because you didn't compromise your peace for someone who couldn't see it in the first place. So remember, chasing pushes him away, but your peace, that's what pulls clarity. That's what makes him think. That's what makes him feel. And that's what allows love, respect, and understanding to flow naturally, without force, without drama, without fear. Let me tell you something about silence. Most people underestimate it. They think that if they talk more, explain more, text more, or argue more, they're going to get results. But here's the truth. Words are cheap when energy is off. You can scream, cry, plead, and beg, and it will change nothing if the other person isn't ready to hear you. Silence, on the other hand, is heavy. Silence speaks in a way that words never can. It's a mirror that reflects truth back to the other person. When you stop explaining, stop defending, stop trying to make someone see your side, you're giving them the space to see it themselves. You're creating a pause, a moment of reflection, and sometimes that's all it takes. See, when a man is confronted with emotional arguments, it's easy for him to tune it out. He hears the words but misses the meaning because the energy behind it is desperation. Desperation is loud, it's chaotic, it's confusing, and it rarely gets results. But silence, peace, calm. It makes him pay attention in a different way. It makes him feel the weight of what's missing. It makes him ask himself questions he wouldn't ask if you were still chasing him, explaining yourself, or proving your love. Silence forces reflection. It forces accountability. It forces him to realize the moments he took for granted, the words he left unsaid, the care he ignored. And the most powerful part is that you didn't do anything dramatic. You didn't fight. You didn't argue. You didn't demand. You simply allowed your silence to speak volumes. People underestimate how strong that is. They think you have to yell or cry to make someone notice you, but real strength is quiet. Real strength is knowing when to step back, when to withhold your energy, when to stop trying to convince someone that you are worth their time. And when you do that, when you embrace silence, you're teaching a lesson without saying a word. You're teaching that your peace is non-negotiable, your dignity is unshakable, and your love is not desperate. Silence speaks to the heart. It forces emotions to surface. It makes the other person confront their feelings in a way that words never could. And when he starts to feel that, when he starts to understand that your absence is not a threat, but a boundary, that's when clarity comes. That's when he starts seeing the value of what he had, the love he ignored, and the person he almost lost. And it works every time because it's natural. You're not manipulating. You're not tricking him. You're simply showing that peace, calm, and self-respect of power. People respond to that energy. They respond to silence. They respond to presence that is confident, unshaken, and unapologetic. So when you stop arguing, when you stop trying to explain yourself, when you stop pleading for attention, you create the space for him to truly feel what's happening. You create the space for him to recognize the truth. And the beautiful thing about silence is that it doesn't just teach him, it teaches you. It teaches you patience, it teaches you self-control, and it teaches you that your worth is not tied to someone else's acknowledgement. Silence is more than the absence of words. It's the presence of strength, the presence of calm, and the presence of self-respect. And when a man finally notices that, when he finally feels the impact of what you've quietly communicated, it's louder than any argument, any text, any emotional outburst could ever be. That's how silence pulls clarity. That's how silence teaches value. That's how silence changes everything without ever saying a single word. Here's something most people don't understand about men and relationships. Men rarely act based on what you say. They act based on what they feel. You can tell a man how much you love him 1,000 times. You can text him, call him, cry for him, even beg him to stay. And it will change very little if he doesn't actually feel your presence, your energy, and your value in his life. That's why absence speaks louder than words. When you stop chasing, when you stop trying to prove yourself, when you step back and allow him to experience life without your constant attention, something remarkable happens. He starts to notice the little things he took for granted. He starts to realize that the woman who always answered his calls, who always forgave, who always showed up, is no longer right there. And that absence, that silence, that distance, it pulls at him in a way words never could. Men respond to presence, to energy, to what they can't control or command. And when that presence is no longer available to them on demand, it triggers reflection. Suddenly, he thinks about the love you showed that he ignored. Suddenly, he thinks about the patience you gave that he didn't appreciate. Suddenly, he feels the weight of your absence, and it's heavy, heavier than any argument, heavier than any explanation, heavier than any speech you could have given. You see, words are easy. You can say anything, promise anything, and it might sound real for a moment, but it fades. Presence is real. Your energy is real. Your absence is real. And a man feels that. He may not say it immediately. He may even act indifferent for a while. But deep down, that absence begins to work on him. It starts to remind him of what he has been missing, what he didn't realize until it was gone, and what he now risks losing forever. That's why letting go is so powerful. Not letting go angrily, not letting go in tears or desperation, but letting go peacefully with dignity. Because when you do that, you give him space to feel, to reflect, to confront his own actions or lack thereof, and to realize the impact of what he almost lost. And here's the part most women miss. You don't have to chase him back. You don't have to plead for attention or try to explain yourself. He feels it. He feels your absence, and that feeling communicates more than any emotional argument ever could. And it's not manipulation. It's truth. It's natural consequence. Your presence and your absence are like day and night. He only realizes the brightness of your light when he experiences the darkness of your absence. And in that darkness, in that space, he starts to understand how much he truly values you. He starts to see the love that was always there, the patience that was always there, the support that was always there, but only becomes visible when it's no longer automatic. And that, my friends, is power. Not power over him, but power in knowing that your worth, your peace, your love is not dependent on constant acknowledgement. It's in letting him feel what he's been missing without drama, without chaos, without desperation. Absence pulls clarity. Absence pulls self-reflection. Absence makes a man realize that love is not something you take lightly, that respect is not something you can ignore, and that a woman's energy is priceless. And when he finally feels that, when he finally understands the weight of your absence, he either steps up or he steps out. Either way, you've communicated your value without saying a word, because a man feels your absence more than your words ever could. Let me break something down for you. There's a big difference between a woman who knows her worth and a woman who's desperate for attention. A woman who's desperate will beg, plead, and chase. She'll lower her standards, overcompensate, and try to prove herself in ways that make her look small. And no matter how much love she shows, no matter how much loyalty she gives, desperation repels. It pushes people away because it signals insecurity, fear, and neediness. But self-respect is magnetic. It's attractive. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't over-explain. It simply exists, calm, confident, and unwavering. A man notices it without even realizing it. He feels it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, in the way you react to him and the situations around you. Self-respect says, I know my value, and I won't settle for less than I deserve. And that changes everything. When a man sees a woman who respects herself, he can't help but be drawn in. Not because she's perfect, not because she's chasing him, but because she's untouchable in her dignity. He sees that she's not running after him, she's not pleading for him, and suddenly he starts to wonder, why is she not desperate for me? That curiosity pulls him in. That self-respect calls him to reflect on his own actions. Did he treat her right? Did he take her for granted? Did he ignore the love she freely gave? And the answer hits him when he sees that she's consistent, poised, and at peace without needing him to validate her worth. Desperation is loud. It screams for attention. It demands recognition. It clings to every opportunity. Self-respect is quiet, but it commands power. It doesn't demand respect. It embodies it. And that's why it's so attractive. A man may not articulate it. He may not admit it, but he feels it. He feels the difference between someone who needs him to survive emotionally and someone who could survive without him, but chooses to love him anyway. That energy is irresistible. And here's the lesson most people don't get. It's not about making him chase you. It's not about playing games or being cold. It's about honoring yourself, setting boundaries, and refusing to compromise your dignity for temporary affection. When you respect yourself, you create an environment where love can flourish naturally, without begging, without pressure, without chaos. And when a man recognizes that energy, when he senses that she's not desperate for his attention, he begins to value it more. He begins to see what he almost lost, and he begins to realize that she is rare. He begins to understand that someone who loves herself enough not to chase, plead, or compromise is worth fighting for. And that, my friends, is power. The kind of power that makes a man sit back and reflect on his choices, the kind of power that creates respect naturally, the kind of power that doesn't require drama or manipulation. You see, desperation is temporary. It fades fast, and it leaves people exhausted. But self-respect lasts. It builds attraction that goes deeper than physical desire. It builds admiration, curiosity, and emotional connection. It makes a man pause and think, she's different, she's confident, she's untouchable, yet she chose me. And that choice becomes sacred because it wasn't coerced, it wasn't begged for, it wasn't forced. It was freely given by someone who knew her value all along. That is why self-respect is more attractive than desperation. It's magnetic, it's powerful, and it's the single most effective way to shift any relationship dynamic without chasing, crying, or arguing. Let me tell you something about relationships most people don't understand. When you hold on too tight, when you chase, when you beg, when you over-explain yourself, you give away your power. And I don't care how much you love someone, no man, or woman for that matter, respects desperation. Chasing makes you small. It flips the dynamic. Suddenly, you're the one on your knees, waiting for him to decide if he wants to stay. And here's the thing, that's not how attraction works. Attraction works on balance. It works on energy. It works on respect and desire. When you let go, truly let go, you shift the power back to where it belongs, not to control him, not to manipulate, but to reclaim yourself. Because here's the secret most people never realize: the more you pull back, the more he starts to notice what he's missing. When you stop texting first, when you stop answering every call immediately, when you stop making excuses for him, something changes in the dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer available on demand, and that scarcity creates awareness. He starts to see that the woman he's taken for granted isn't just sitting around waiting for him. She's living her life, focused on her goals, her happiness, her peace. And that's when the shift happens. He begins to question himself. He begins to reflect on his actions. He begins to wonder why she's not desperate, why she's not clinging, why she's not chasing. And in that reflection, he begins to respect you more, he begins to value you more, and he begins to realize that the power in the relationship isn't about who screams the loudest or who begs the most. It's about presence, it's about energy, and it's about confidence. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. Letting go doesn't mean you give up. Letting go means you honor yourself enough to step back and let life show the truth. It means you don't compromise your peace to make someone love you. And that shift in energy, it's noticeable. People feel it, men feel it, and it changes how they respond. Suddenly, the dynamic is no longer him dictating how the relationship goes and you following. Suddenly, there's equality, respect, and curiosity. Suddenly, he has to consider his own actions because you've shown that you won't tolerate disrespect, neglect, or indifference. Letting go also gives you clarity. You start to see who truly values you and who doesn't. You start to understand that some people will never show up, no matter how much you chase them. And that's okay, because by letting go, you've reclaimed your power, your energy, and your peace. And here's the truth. When a man sees that you are no longer available in the ways you once were, he starts to reflect on his mistakes. He starts to weigh his choices. He starts to recognize the love, loyalty, and patience he took for granted. And sometimes that reflection brings him back. But this time it's on your terms, not because you begged, not because you chased, because you let go with dignity and strength. That's the shift in power. It's not about control. It's about self-respect. It's about setting boundaries. It's about showing that your worth is not up for negotiation. And when you do that, the energy in the relationship changes. The respect increases. The clarity appears. The man begins to act differently, sometimes more appreciative, sometimes more attentive, sometimes more loving, but only because you stopped giving him what was never earned. And that, my friends, is the real power of letting go. It shifts the dynamic, restores balance, and reminds both of you that love isn't about desperation. It's about mutual respect, energy, and presence. Let me tell you something most people get wrong about love. They think that if they put themselves first, if they focus on their own peace, their own happiness, their own growth, they're going to lose the person they care about. They think stepping back, setting boundaries, or saying no will push him away forever. But here's the truth: choosing yourself doesn't take love away. It attracts the right kind of love. When you stop bending over backward, when you stop giving more than you receive, when you stop chasing someone who isn't ready, you're not losing anything. You're gaining clarity. You're gaining respect. You're gaining peace. And a man can feel that. He feels the difference between someone who is lost without him and someone who is complete with herself. He feels the difference between someone who chases and someone who chooses. And that energy, that confidence, that self-awareness, it pulls him closer, or it reveals quickly who truly deserves to be in your life. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. It's the foundation of love that lasts. Because if you don't love yourself, if you don't respect your own boundaries, if you don't honor your own peace, how can anyone else do it? People will take what you allow them to take. They will value what you refuse to compromise. So when you focus on your own life, your own dreams, your own happiness, you create a standard that attracts people who are aligned with that energy. And the beautiful part is you never have to force it. You never have to manipulate, beg, or chase. You simply live authentically. You simply honor yourself. And in that authenticity, love either grows or it becomes obvious that it wasn't real to begin with. Choosing yourself also teaches a man lessons he can't learn any other way. He sees that you are not dependent on his validation, that you are not defined by his attention, and that your love is not a commodity to be earned through drama. And that truth resonates. It makes him realize the value of someone who can love fully, but doesn't need to be validated to feel worthy. And when he sees that, he respects it. He appreciates it. He may even come back. But this time, it's because he wants to, not because you begged him. And if he doesn't come back, that's fine too. Because choosing yourself means you are not losing anything. Your peace, your dignity, and your self-worth remain intact. You've created space for the right kind of love to enter your life, the kind that is mutual, respectful, and real. You see, too many people confuse sacrifice with love. They think loving someone means giving up themselves. But real love doesn't ask for that. Real love compliments. It doesn't consume. Real love encourages growth. It doesn't demand dependency. And when you choose yourself first, you're opening the door to love that actually matters, love that actually lasts, and love that honors both people equally. So never be afraid to put yourself first. Never apologize for valuing your own happiness. Never feel guilty for protecting your peace. When you do that, you're not losing love. You're finding it. You're attracting people who will meet you at your level. People who will respect your boundaries. People who will appreciate your worth. And that, my friends, is the kind of love that doesn't need chasing, begging, or manipulation. That's the kind of love that grows naturally when you choose yourself first. And that's how you truly win in love, life, and relationships.